Okay, guys, so I am going to be talking to you about the Fred Korematzu mock trial. So in your Google Classroom, you guys should have an assignment posted. It looks like this, Korematzu mock trial. And if you guys want to open up the second document listed, that is the mock trial of Fred Korematzu. So you are going to get a Google Doc to pull up that looks like this. And this is essentially our instructions from the mock trial. Now, if you were in world history last year, the way that we are going to conduct this mock trial is very similar to the way that we conducted the mock trial in world history for Louis XVI. And so let's see how this corresponds to our story of Fred Korematzu, which hopefully you just read the story about him and how he disobeyed Executive Order 9066 and that whole conflict. So it says, after learning about Executive Order 9066 and the story of Fred Korematzu, you will now have the chance to simulate the mock trial of Korematzu. Through this activity, each of you will have the opportunity to participate in the trial in some way. So this was an actual trial that happened in U.S. history. It was brought all the way to the Supreme Court, and so we are going to recreate that trial in our classroom. So as you will see down here, you'll see that we have 4 defense attorneys. Okay, it says your job is to defend Mr. Korematzu as he takes his case to trial. So 4 students, and sometimes in the bigger classes too, we'll have 5 attorneys, but 4 students will act as defense attorneys. And you will be responsible between those 4 to 5 people for defending Fred. You're trying to prove that he is innocent of the crimes that they have charged him with. And so what you have to get accomplished and ready for Friday, because Friday is when we're going to be conducting the trial, Friday and Monday, is number 1, the opening statement. This is at the very beginning of the trial. It's introducing the problem and how you're going to try to prove your person innocent. And I would like for that opening statement to be 3 to 5 minutes. And then you will have to prepare a closing statement. A closing statement is going to summarize like what your case was, what you have done to prove him innocent. And it's like the lasting impression that you are going to leave with the jury before they make their decision. And so that'll need to be 3 to 5 minutes. Now, the second part here, it says direct examination. For direct examination, I would like you guys to ask 5 questions of your witnesses. And for the cross-examination, I would like you guys to ask at least 3 questions of your witnesses. And so what that means is you can see right below down here in the witness area, you can see where it talks about defense witnesses. And it has like Sarah and Ralph and Curtis. Those are the defense's witnesses. Those are people that are going to prove the defense's point. And so you will be directly examining them. You will need 5 questions for each witness. Then cross-examination means when you question the prosecution witnesses. So you can see Mike Mazoka, John L. DeWitt, and Judy Smith. So that is when you ask the opposing side's witnesses. Those are people that are trying to prove that he is guilty. And so you will at least need to ask 3 questions of them. So together, your 4 to 5 attorneys need to get these 4 things done. So you can see there's 4 things, there's 4 attorneys. Each person can be responsible for each thing. You can have a pair work on the opening and closing, a pair work on the direct and cross, and you guys can all collaborate together. And so you guys will have tomorrow and Thursday to do that. Now, then you can see we're going to go down to the prosecution attorneys. There'll be 4 to 5 people for that as well too. And you can see it says your job is to prove that Executive Order 9066 is constitutional. So you are trying to show that this executive order was constitutional in the first place. The government had every right to do this, and that Fred Korematzu broke the law, and it was a constitutional law. And so this is going to be the same requirements as the other one. And so you can see they have an opening statement, which will be 3 to 5 minutes. So it's the same thing, except the prosecution attorneys Their opening statement is going to talk about how Fred is guilty and how Executive Order 9066 is constitutional, etc. Needs to be like a 3 to 5 minute speech. Also, pay attention closely here. Also with this, I do not want you guys bringing your Chromebooks up to give this speech. So you will need to have this on note cards, something like that, like make good eye contact and present these opening and closing statements in a professional way. And then of course the closing statement, 3 to 5 minutes. Direct examination, this time you're directly examining your witnesses. So the prosecution is directly examining the prosecution witnesses. You will need to have 5 questions per person. And then the cross-examination, you'll have 3 questions, and that is for the defense's witnesses. So you will need to question them. Now, one thing that I have not mentioned is the defendant, which is Fred. He obviously is going to be a witness. Technically, you guys, the defense can determine whether or not to pull him up on the stand, but everyone usually does pull him up on the stand. So defense, you guys will have to prepare direct examination questions for him. And obviously, prosecution, you guys will have to prepare cross-examination for our defendant. I wish I could circle this really big, Fred Korematzu, since he's the one being put on trial. So that is the responsibilities of the prosecution and the defense attorneys. They're both the same. You guys will have a team of 4 to 5 people. You guys can work together to collaborate to get this accomplished for Friday. Now, our witnesses, they are going to be, these are, you see, the defense witnesses and the prosecution witnesses. And these people are going to be preparing a 1-page testimony. And then, of course, they are going to need to prep direct and cross-examination questions and stuff like that, how to answer those things. So this 1-page testimony is essentially like a 1-page write-up on like who they are, what their beliefs are, how do they connect to this trial. And so if we go back to Google Classroom and you guys look and see at the Korematzu mock trial folder, there's a whole bunch of documents. So you can see here's all your witness sources. And so if I go and click on, let's say, witness source for DeWitt. So this is, wrong tab. This is for John L. DeWitt, who is a prosecution witness. And for every witness, guys, you will have a little instruction sheet, talks about what you're doing, gives a little background on your person, so you can see there's your person, what their beliefs are. And then also, you will have in the same folder, witness sources DeWitt, you will have like an excerpt of some type of primary source that relates to your person, so something else to use within your testimony. So witnesses, you are writing this testimony based off of the 2 sources that you have. Okay, so you can see, like, if you go back to the mock trial, then like Schwartz has sources. Okay, you can see both right there. So you will use these sources to write your testimony. Witnesses, the most important thing is that you get your testimony done as soon as possible. So my expectation, witnesses, is that your testimony, like you could even work on it tonight, get it turned in first thing tomorrow, but your testimony has to be done tomorrow because your attorneys need that time to prep questions and prep you for the actual trial on Friday. So the sooner you get that done, the sooner you have some free time, you'll be able to hang out until they're ready to start prepping you for questioning. But it's really going to help our attorneys out if you get that done as soon as possible. So far, I've went over the defense attorneys and prosecution attorneys. They both have the same requirements and responsibilities. I've went over the witnesses, your 1-page testimony. That is the most important thing. Please get that done as soon as possible. And there's 3, of course, for each. And then, of course, Fred, you're also a witness, and so you will have that same testimony to do as well, too. There will be a folder posted tomorrow to Google Classroom in which you'll turn in those testimonies, so both sides, the defense and prosecution, have access to that. Finally, there are the jurors. So if you have looked on the assignments for like what you are during this project, you will see there's quite a few people that are jurors as well too. And so your responsibilities, jurors, is that you are going to choose one out of the 3 options to complete located on the jurors responsibilities page, and I'm going to show you that here in a second. And then on the day of, you are acting as the jury. You are to fill out the juror sheet on the trial day, and that is mostly what your primary grade is. Optional other roles, we'll talk about that later, but that's not necessarily important right now. So jury, if we go back to this folder, remember, how do I get to this folder? You are going to go, remember, like your Google Classroom, and you would click on the very first thing here. It says Korematzu Mock Trial Google Drive folder, and that brings you to this here. Look, there's a nice folder here full of juror documents. And you can see juror responsibilities. That is what I need to look at right here. So I'm going to click that. And jurors, you have 3 options for what you can do during the work time while everyone else is prepping for the trial. And this is what your grade is based on. So first option, number 1, you must interview someone that has been a juror. So if you know a teacher, a grandparent, a relative, parent, sibling that has been a juror or friend, you need to prep 10 questions that you would ask them. You would need to interview them, and then you would need to record your responses in a 1 to 2 page paper about what you found out when interviewing that person who served on a jury. So you would need to choose someone that has served on a jury. Okay, so that's option number 1. Option number 2, you can pick any historical, controversial court case with a jury. Okay, so it's not a Supreme Court case, it's a case with a jury, and evaluate the ruling, the jury selection process, and the jury's impact on the case. And the way you're going to be turning this in is through a Google slideshow. Your Google slideshow must have 12 slides. Now, I'll give you an example of a court case to choose, and I'm going to say this, and only one person in the class gets to do this court case. But an example of a court case that someone could choose would be the OJ trial. So if someone wants to do like a little presentation on the OJ trial, you're not actually presenting it. You will just turn the Google slideshow in, and I will look at that later. Also, if you were familiar with the Casey Anthony case, that's another example of what you could do. But it has to have a jury, so it can't be a Supreme Court case. Then finally, number 3, you could create a 1 minute and 30-second to 2 minute video on how to be selected as a juror, and how are jurors selected, and what are their responsibilities after they've been selected. So these are your 3 opportunities. You may choose one of them, and that is what you need to be working on these next 2 days, and that is what you will be turning in by Friday. Okay, and then of course on Friday and Monday you guys will be serving as the jury, and you'll have a note sheet to fill out on those days. So that can be found in the jurors folder under the Korematzu mock trial. Okay, so that sums up, let me click on the right thing here. That sums up what everyone's responsibilities are. If you want to see how you guys are being graded, of course there is a rubric, and you can look at that rubric on Google Classroom. Same 5 categories as per normal. You can see how the lawyers, or the defense lawyers and prosecution lawyers will be graded, the witnesses, and the jury. And so if you want to take some time to look at that, you can. But I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go ahead and get started working. If there is time left in class after this video is done being shown, I would like all the attorneys to meet in their groups. So the defense attorneys need to sit in a group together in the classroom. The prosecution attorneys need to sit together in a group in a classroom. The defense witnesses need to sit together, and so do the prosecution witnesses. And of course, the jurors can sit in a section of the room together to work on what they need to work on. You are not to sit and just mess around with whatever time is remaining. I expect you to start talking about like what you need to do and start collaborating if you are needing to collaborate. So with that, if you have not figured it out yet, the instruction PowerPoint that was posted in Classroom has the roles for all 3 of my classes. So you guys can go look and see what roles that you have to figure out like what you are going to be doing during the actual trial. So hopefully this all makes sense. Of course, as always, if you have any questions, you can email your teacher. to see if you don't understand something. And of course, we will be back tomorrow. And like I said, we have Wednesday and Thursday to work, and then Friday is when we will actually do the trial. So we'll see you guys tomorrow.